After World War II, Britain needed a car everyone could afford. The Austin A30 and A35 were small, humble, and full of surprises. From weak engines to police patrols and rally wins, their story is shocking. Join us as we uncover the secrets of Britain's cheapest cars. In the early 1950s, Britain was still recovering from the scars of World War II. Rationing, limited steel supplies, and a cautious public shaped everything the car industry produced. The Austin A30 was not born from passion or luxury. It was born from necessity. Austin wanted a car that could be built cheaply, sold cheaply, and kept running by owners with limited money and mechanical knowledge. The goal was simple: undercut the hugely popular Morris Minor and put Britain on four wheels. To hit its price target, almost everything was compromised. Interior space was tight, sound insulation was minimal, and styling was conservative to avoid costly press tools. Even the famous lack of an external boot lid on early A30s was a cost-saving decision. This was not a car designed to impress. It was designed to survive an era of austerity. Yet, ironically, this ruthless focus on affordability helped mobilize a generation of post-war families. The A30 represents one of Britain's boldest automotive experiments, proving that personal transport could be stripped down to its bare essentials and still succeed in the marketplace. At first glance, the Austin A30's engine seems laughably underpowered. Even by 1950s standards, the small A-series engine produced modest power, but this was not a failure of engineering. It was a deliberate decision. Austin engineers knew that stronger power would overwhelm the lightweight gearbox and drivetrain, increasing warranty claims and repair costs. By keeping the engine undertuned, Austin ensured durability, fuel efficiency, and low insurance costs. This mattered deeply in a Britain where petrol was expensive and many buyers were first-time car owners. The engine's gentle nature also meant it could tolerate poor maintenance and low-quality fuel, common realities at the time. While the A30 struggled on hills and fast main roads, it excelled in stop-start city driving and rural commuting. Owners learned patience rather than speed. This intentional weakness also extended engine life, with many units running reliably for decades. When the Austin A35 appeared in 1956, it was marketed as an improvement, but in reality, it was a quiet admission that the A30 had shortcomings. Customer complaints had been impossible to ignore. Weak rear suspension, limited power, and durability issues under heavier loads. Instead of starting again, Austin refined what already existed. The A35 kept the same basic body shell, size, and philosophy, but crucial mechanical upgrades transformed the driving experience. The most important change was the introduction of a larger A-series engine, offering noticeably better performance without sacrificing reliability. The rear end was strengthened with a new rear axle and improved suspension, addressing one of the A30's biggest weaknesses. Brakes and body strength components were also reinforced. This was not innovation, it was evolution through necessity. The A35 represents a rare moment in automotive history where a manufacturer publicly corrected its own mistakes without reinventing the car. It stands as proof that the original A30 concept was sound, but execution needed refinement. The A35 didn't replace the A30, it redeemed it. One of the most uncomfortable truths about the Austin A30 and A35 is their legendary rust problem. Corrosion was not something that developed slowly over decades. It often began alarmingly early. Post-war Britain faced severe steel shortages, forcing manufacturers to use thinner metal of uneven quality. Protective coatings were basic, and rust protection was minimal by modern standards. Assembly lines were focused on speed, not long-term durability. Moisture traps in the body design, especially around the lower sides, wheel arches, and floor panels, allowed rust to flourish in Britain's damp climate. Even cars kept in garages were not immune. This explains why surviving examples today are often heavily restored or rebuilt using parts from multiple cars. At the time, however, buyers didn't expect cars to last forever. A lifespan of 10 years was considered reasonable. Rust was an accepted trade-off for affordability. The A30 and A35 didn't fail because they rusted. They simply reflected the realities of their era. Today, their corrosion issues tell a larger story about Britain's industrial limits in the 1950s. While most people remember the Austin A30 and A35 as small family saloon cars, their real success story lies in their commercial versions. The van models quietly became the backbone of small British businesses. Tradesmen, shopkeepers, and delivery drivers valued reliability over comfort, and the A35 van delivered exactly that. Its simple mechanics, low running costs, and compact size made it perfect for crowded city streets and narrow village roads. Unlike private buyers, commercial users worked these vehicles hard, often overloaded and poorly maintained, yet they kept going. Austin recognized this demand and leaned into it, producing vans in large numbers. In many years, van sales were higher than saloon sales, an unusual achievement for a passenger car design. These working vehicles rarely survived long enough to become classics, which is why they are rarer today. Their disappearance isn't due to lack of importance. It's because they worked until they physically couldn't anymore. The dominance of the van version proves that the A30 and A35 were less lifestyle cars and more tools of economic recovery. The sight of a police Austin A35 may seem amusing today, but in the 1950s it made perfect sense. British policing prioritized visibility, low cost, and reliability over speed. The A35 fit these requirements well. It was cheap to purchase, easy to maintain, and simple enough for police workshop mechanics to service quickly. In urban areas, where patrol speeds were low and streets were narrow, outright performance mattered far less than easy handling and endurance. The A35 became a familiar presence in towns and cities, used for routine patrols and office duties rather than high-speed chases. Its use by the police also gave the car an image of respectability and trustworthiness. Perhaps the most surprising chapter in the A35's story is its success in international racing events. In the demanding 1958 Monte Carlo Rally, the Austin A35 achieved a class victory, an astonishing result for such a modest car. This was not about outright speed. The rally tested endurance, reliability, and consistency in harsh winter conditions. In the 1958 Monte Carlo Rally, snow-covered roads, freezing temperatures, and long stages pushed every car and driver to the limit. The Austin A35's simple design, lightweight, and reliable engine handled the challenge perfectly. While more powerful cars broke down or struggled, the A35 kept going. Its class victory proved that simple, dependable engineering could outperform complexity and secured the A35's place in British motoring history.